So this should be video number 2 about this Bullfinch. We've got it home as promised. Wasn't too hard. This is rather heavy. Engine off, so 4 pieces altogether. The main component, the little stationary engine, Briggs and Stratton 2.5 horse, handlebars and plough blade. So had a little bit of a tinker figuring out a few things and where things move and undo and nuts and bolts and stuff. Priority I think first up is going to be this engine and taking the cowl off, sorting out the pull start. I can already see the little brackets that hold the pull start wheel back in are gone and broken, so I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do there. I was turning it over by hand and it has got compression. That's actually going in reverse. So you see the starter cord pull back in. When I go in the direction we have to run, I can hear it popping. It's easy to turn by hand though, and I'm just looking at this pulley now and there's a slight bend, so I hope the crank's not bent. It might just be that the pulley needs a shim. So anyways, I'll start and take this cover off, have a look at this pull starter. Might throw a drill on there just to test for spark. The gas tank's clean, it's not rusty on the inside, that's a good thing. I took the air filter off, it's a little oil bath. Took that off and had a look inside, that's clean, the carburetor's clean, so if it's got spark and I can get that pull starter, we might just have a go at starting it and see if it just fires up as is. Alright, let's do it. So I'm just going to try something a bit different with this video. I'm just go with a voiceover and this bit of music in the background. Edited a whole lot out because it was just too much of me yakking and not getting on with the job, so lifted this motor up on the bench, just having a look around, and got to take this outer cover off, the shroud and the pull start, and get into that and figure out what's going on. So yeah, just backwards and forwards to the shed there, grabbing some tools and sockets, and you see a bit of that wandering around. This cover is supposed to have 3 bolts to hold it in place, but there's only 2. One of them's gone missing at some stage, so we get the top one out of there first. Other one's down on the other side. I don't know if you can see the empty hole where the 3rd one should be, just under there it is here. So there's a bolt missing from there. Once those 3 are out, the whole thing just pulled off really easy, so yeah, not jammed on, nothing too technical about that. Having a look inside at what's going on with that pull starter cord, and it seems that the springs completely come away and not even attached to the inner wheel, so that's the biggest problem. All the little tabs that are supposed to fold back and hold that rotating assembly in place, they're all snapped off completely, so it's been apart a few times in the past, I'd say, and they've all broken away. So I come up with a plan, you'll see what I do for fixing that. So I thought I'd take the spark plug out and just have a go at seeing if there's spark in the motor before I get too carried away with fixing the starter. Figured if there's no spark, you know, if you've got to make sure the engine's viable before I waste too much time doing anything more technical. So sit the spark plug on the top of the engine there, make sure it's got a good sort of ground. I'm just going to check on rotating the engine in the right direction as well. The little ratchet starter only works one way, so that didn't take much to figure out. I have a socket that actually fits onto that little ratchet start drive system. 7/8 AF is the exact socket size if anyone else is interested and wants to give it a go. 7/8, and I just put that in a drill. My little battery drill's nearly dead, so I use an impact on a low speed, and because I'm not putting too much force on it, it's not actually impacting and doing that rattle gun thing. It just helps spin it over. So give it a good spin and find out that there's no spark whatsoever. So we have to dive into the points. Points are in behind the flywheel on these, so normally I'd use a little 1/4 inch drive, a 1/4 inch socket, 1/4 inch AF socket, but this has had 2 of the screws replaced in the past, so they're just little straight flat screws in there, not hex heads, so little screwdriver gets those 4 off out of the road. And then the starter itself is a knockoff, so it needs to be tapped in that anti-clockwise direction. It's threaded onto the shaft, and then the flywheel's a taper fit. So a few little gentle taps with a hammer should break it loose. This is exactly the same as the starter that's on the Morrison Olympic mower, so I already knew how to get it off. Didn't want to risk breaking fins on that flywheel, so I went for the punch idea and just secured it with a screwdriver. Doesn't take much, there's not a lot of pressure to get it loose, so a few gentle taps there. Put a little clamp to hold that down to the bench, just so I didn't knock the motor right off. A few extra taps here, off camera it came loose, so there we go, just spins off. Got to be careful taking this off. I didn't want the outer cover to come off the starter because there's little ball bearings inside and I don't want to lose them. Starter's all working fine. I may, when I put it back together, I might take it apart and throw some grease on the inside, but I didn't see any reason for now to take that apart, so set that aside. Yeah, just double checking that shaft. There is a washer there. I'll leave the washer in place for now so I don't lose the key on the way out. Gentle taps and the flywheel came straight off, so there's the washer. Just set that to the side so we don't lose it, and just slide the flywheel off carefully. Don't want to lose that key. That key will come off the shaft in a sec. You can see a little bit of oil on the back of the flywheel too, so just got to, yeah, I do replace the oil seals in this motor, so just put that little key to the side there. Looking at the outside of the flywheel, a little bit of corrosion, a little bit of filth around the outside of it, so I'll get all that cleaned up when I put it back together. Two little screws in here. Now these didn't have the slots through the middle, so these are that quarter-inch AF socket, just on a little screwdriver bit there. Pop that off and have a look at the points on the inside. Usually what stops these sparking, or has in the past on the other motors, has been some oil on the points. Just weeps past that inner oil seal. Doesn't take much, they need to be really clean, so I don't want to lose these screws, so we'll get this off. Sit them inside the cover and just be quite careful in there, just checking the other connections up to the spark plug as well. There's lots of things that can stop the spark, but it turns out it's the points, so just sit that to the side and have a little nosy in there. The gap looked good, they're opening and closing as they should, so the plunger's alright. So off camera I gave these a little scrub up. I don't know if you saw the video edit there, but nice clean rag just to clean that stuff up completely. Got to be lint free. I found in the past any fluff left in there from a rag still just hinders everything, so I used a bit of wet and dry sandpaper in there and just wiping them dry, because I used some brake clean as well. Brake cleaner, gave them a squirt to get everything out, and they seem to be good. So back on, flywheel's back on, starter's back on. Just cleaned the outside of that flywheel while it was off as well. You can see it's all shiny there as well around the pickup, so that'll all help. Got the spark plug sitting back on the top, so we're just going to spin it again with the drill and see a good spark in there, so that's a good sign. So now we move on to that starter, and here's the spring that's out of it. We can see it's back inside there now. The little end had snapped off completely. It's supposed to have two little grooves. You'll see them in the other end of the spring. So I had to get my grinder and just grind the notches into that spring to make it fit back in there into the rewind. That end there goes up through the housing. There's a little hole up there somewhere. Goes in and twists sideways. It was an absolute nightmare to put together, but we got it back in there. So where those tabs were snapped off, you probably just saw three little bolts. I put three little bolts through there with a nut on the inside, and they're doing exactly the same job those little bent over tabs would have done to hold the rotational assembly in place. So that worked out really well. Got some tension back on that spring. Didn't lose any fingers in the process, so the spring was kept captive with the vice grips. Just checking it again for spark, pulling it over there. And it's a little, the spark's good, it's working, so I think I'm going to have a go at firing it. I didn't want to put fuel in the tank. At this stage I haven't checked the carb out, and I wasn't sure if there was going to be any leaks, and if it did start I wanted to make sure I was going to be able to stop it and that sort of stuff. So a little bit of brake clean for a start, and we'll just see if it fires and see if anything's going to happen, and then we can move on to some gas in the tank. So I see little puffs from the exhaust there, which is a good sign. Took quite a few pulls, just playing with the choke backwards and forwards, and you know, the odd little chuff of smoke comes out of it, so I know it's going to do something any minute now. Yeah, it's all looking really promising for this motor. I'm really proud of what's going to happen, and the stage I've got to that you'll see later in the video. So this little squirt here, and then this is what happened. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was great. So put a little bit of fuel in the tank, not too much, just enough, you know, don't want to waste it. I know I'm going to be taking it apart and have to drain the tank again, so we, yeah, bit of fuel in there. Left the air cleaner off for now, just so I could see what's going on, playing with the choke, and again, checking connections for the spark plug, all that sort of stuff. I was just talking too much in my video, so I edited it out, but bit of a shake, and here we go. So there you go, as you can see it runs, it's pretty rough. There was a lot of oil in that exhaust, really bad, really smoky, so that tells me there's something up with either the valves or the piston rings or something. Could even have the wrong oil, I'm not really sure what's going on, but yeah, the next stage is taking the head off to look at what's going on inside. So the back 3 head bolts go through and they make part of that bracket that holds the fuel tank, so took them out. Just wind these other bolts back in here, stops anything falling into the tank. See a little braze up job on there, there's been a crack or a break in the fuel tank before that's been fixed, so that's pretty neat to see it fixed up the old school way. All the other bolts are loose. Spark plug I'll just leave in the head for now, that's not going to do any harm leaving that there. And this is the first time I've lifted the head off, quite gentle and careful because I don't want to damage the head gasket. Head gasket's good enough to reuse in this, so here we go, lift it up, and I wasn't impressed at all with what I saw when I did that. So first thing you can see there is how dirty the valves are and the amount of carbon, but watch what happens when I just wind this piston to the top. It's not very good at all. The inside of the bore actually looks fine, but look at all that oil and how black the top of that is. So you can see me wipe it off with my finger. That's way too much oil to be up in there, up in the combustion chamber, around the walls of the cylinder. So yeah, I'm thinking the piston rings are gone, far too worn. I'll just take another look at it from a different angle, and I think you'll see sort of the amount of movement in the piston. Here we go, if I just put my finger on the top there, rocking that piston backwards and forwards, look at how much movement there is. So it's potentially the bore's worn as well, I don't really know. I'm not going to spec it or get it bored out or oversized or anything. I'm just going to get new piston rings to put in there and make it run. You know, it's 65 years old, this thing. So yeah, new set of piston rings, give the valves a good clean up, that sort of stuff. So just taking a closer look at the valves so you can see how much carbon and yuck there is built up on there. So the exhaust valve has a little bit of play in the stem and in the valve guide. Not too bad. I'm not going to worry about re-sleeving or doing anything with the valve guide. That's you know, okay for me. And the inlet valve was perfectly fine. There's really no movement at all in there, nothing excessive. You know, it's fine. Yeah, so that's where we are there. This is where we are now. Everything's apart. One thing that I've found out, or a couple of things I found out, the engine's pre-1964. It's a 80302. It's actually 3 horsepower. I think I mentioned earlier in the video that it was only 2.5, but it's a 3 horsepower. And knowing that it's pre-64 is because of the magneto, the 3 legs on the magneto armature there. There's yeah, they stopped doing those in 64. I looked at the blower housing and found the serial number, and it starts, the first 2 numbers of the serial number on this are 58, so that tells me it's a 1958 engine, I'm pretty sure. So I had the top piston ring off the piston, and I've got that sitting in the top of the bore there. I used the piston to push down on top of it just to hold it square, and look at the gap there is. So that ring gap is ridiculously excessive. So that's where the problem arose. All 3 of the rings, I had them all off and sat them all in there, and they're all exactly the same gap, so way too far worn. While that was all apart, the valves are out. They're sitting in a box over here, so I cleaned them all off, got rid of the carbon, put some grinding paste in, and I've lapped them in, and they seat really nicely. Got the ports taped off on the outside there just because I gave it a really good steam clean. Got all the oil, all the gunk, all the dirt, everything's out of there ready for paint. So that's really good to see that nicely cleaned up. Yeah, dropped the valve back in just to check on that. You can see a little bit of wear on that valve stem. So I threw it back down through there, through the guide, and it'll be okay. I mean, for 65 years old, you know, I could get new ones, but this is okay by my standards for what we're doing with it and the amount of use that it's going to get from now on. I know it's going to increase its compression just with those rings done. So the carburetor, took that off, gave it a bit of a clean on the inside. I dropped the bottom off and checked the bowl and checked the needle valve. Did the trick of blowing through the fuel inlet while it was up the right way, and then did it up the wrong way just to check that the needle for the float valve was sealing off, and that works fine. That's good. There's the little oil bath air cleaner. Gave that a good clean up as well, inside and out, so we'll put fresh oil in that when we put everything back together. What else did I have on the table there to talk to you about? Not much really, just all the bits and pieces sitting there. So while that was apart, I also took the main part of the machine outside and gave it a water blast, just cold water at that stage. Got rid of the gunge and the gunk and the build-up that was around it. Now most of the mess on this machine came from the oil seals on the end of those axles driving out to the wheels. I had a huge mess on my garage floor when I took the wheels off from the amount of oil that came out between them. Just pointing out the PTO connection there, that little latch, those two levers pivot out of the way, and the two gearboxes separate. So yeah, these wheels and tyres are going to be a mission. I've come up with a bit of a plan on what I'm going to do, but if anyone knows anything about these or where you can replace them, by all means drop a comment, because I can't find them anywhere. I'm going to make my own. Keep an eye out for that video when it comes, so hopefully it'll be an interesting process. These are the seals that I was talking about. So there's the little one on the left hand side, the old one, and the 4 that are lined up are the new ones. They're actually the wrong size seals that I got, but they were the only ones available. The inside diameter is good, the outside diameter is too big. So I trimmed the outside down and got them fitted. That's the little steel dust cap. So the seal goes inside that dust cap and pulls onto the axle. When the wheels go on, the wheel pulls slightly against the dust cap and pulls the seal in tight. As long as I don't overfill the gearbox like it has been in the past, I'd say the oil's been coming out. So I hope doing that little voiceover for this video worked. This is the last little bit that I'm going to add in. Definitely had some battles with some things, taking things apart, but this is the engine in its state. Showed it earlier. So yeah, everything's just apart, still sitting on the bench. The machine itself did split from the clamp, so PTO clamp that joins it. Those oil seals I've put in, and there's some new washers. They're not too bad, they're not leaking at this stage, but I've just got to make sure I don't overfill the gearboxes. So there we go, those two are sitting down there. Just outside here, this is all going away for painting. Taking it to my brother-in-law, who's kindly going to paint this for me. Really awesome dude, Ruben. So if you watch this, thank you so much for potentially what you've done or what you're about to do. So there we go, these are all the parts here. I've got a little box just down here with the tyre treads that came off. I've got a plan for how I'm going to redo these tyres. Unfortunately one broke when it was coming off, but they were all pretty shot anyway. Underneath the table I've got a little collection of nuts and bolts, so some of these will be replaced, some of them won't. I'm just going to reuse them, but there's some there that I'm going to be replacing. And sitting over on this little bench here, I've got some parts that have turned up. So new oil, new drive belt, some gasket paper, the hose clamps I'm going to be using because I don't have a piston ring compressor, new muffler and a retaining nut, piston ring set sitting there, and a new sticker to put on once it's all painted up. So hopefully this little motor is going to look like new. So yeah, if you've liked this video, I hope that, like I said, that voiceover worked out. Definitely had some trials and tribulations along the way. I've edited a lot out of the videos that I took because there was just too much yabbering like I'm doing now, so I probably talk a bit too much and need to just get on with it. So yeah, like, share, subscribe. If you do subscribe, remember to hit that notification so you can see when the next video comes up. But the next one will just be putting the engine back together and getting it running again, so I might not film too much, but I'll try a little bit. Yeah, thanks for watching, enjoy it. and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.